Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it,
We examine the pieces.
then expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
What if everything about cosmic perspective as a cure for anxiety isn't just wrong, but is designed to keep you passive and compliant? That's the big question we're diving into today. And you know this stuff. You really can't avoid it online.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. Those beautiful videos, sweeping shots of space, galaxies, nebulae.
Exactly. And always that deep, calm voice telling you, you're just atoms. You're temporary. So your rent, your job stress, political worries, forget it. Doesn't matter.
It's pitched as this profound aha moment. Millions are watching this. The core claim is simple. Grasp how tiny you are in the cosmos and poof, your personal anxieties just dissolve.
Sounds amazing, right? Liberating. Almost like a spiritual hack to get out of stress.
It really does. And honestly, that's why it lands for so many people.
Yeah.
We looked at, a whole genre of videos, really, pushing this exact message, millions and millions of views.
On the surface, yeah, it feels like a positive philosophical trend. Good vibes. But what happens when we take our deconstructionist scalpel to it?
That's the mission today. We need to look past that immediate, aesthetic comfort it offers
Right.
and ask the harder question. How can something that feels so freeing, so personally empowering, actually function as a control mechanism?
Right.
Because our counter thesis here is that this whole cosmic perspective thing, it's actually a really sophisticated form of emotional bypassing.
Emotional bypassing. Define that for us.
It uses the sheer scale of the universe, the biggest context imaginable, to basically invalidate real, immediate human concerns, legitimate suffering.
And the result?
It promotes this kind of psychological passivity, which, tends to serve the existing power structures quite well.
Okay, let's definitely unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, when I watch one of those videos, initially, I do feel calmer, less stressed out. So why? How does this idea, which you're saying is potentially disempowering, manage to feel so good, so profound right off the bat?
It really comes down to the packaging.
Yeah.
The delivery system. It's what we've started calling aestheticized nihilism.
Aestheticized nihilism.
Okay, so think about it. This isn't nihilism coming from, some gloomy philosopher in a black turtleneck telling you life is pointless.
No, definitely not that vibe.
No, it's nihilism wrapped up in breathtaking beauty, serene cosmic visuals, that calm, almost reverent narration. It makes the feeling of, frankly, intellectual defeat seem profound, beautiful even, wise.
It's the visuals that grab you first, isn't it? Those Hubble images, the CGI fly-throughs, combined with that very specific, almost liturgical voiceover.
Yeah, it's an immersion. It's designed to feel like you're receiving some kind of ancient wisdom.
But what's the message under the beauty?
Effectively, your life is meaningless, but hey, look at the pretty nebula. It disguises the philosophical trick, the sleight of hand.
And why is that appealing when you're, say, freaking out about a deadline or worried about money?
Because when you're in that state of acute anxiety, job stress, family pressure, money worries, whatever it is, your brain is just desperate for relief, any relief.
Yeah.
And this perspective offers the ultimate escape hatch. Just zoom out, all the way out, into the vacuum of space.
So it bypasses the source of the pain.
Completely. It suggests the pain isn't even real in the grand scheme of things because it's not cosmically big. It doesn't address the deadline or the toxic boss or the debt. It just implies they don't matter on a galactic scale.
Which brings us back to that core mechanism you mentioned. Emotional bypassing. Let's get really specific, psychologically. What's happening there?
Okay, so emotional bypassing in this specific context means you're systematically invalidating your own anxiety purely based on scale. Not based on dealing with its actual causes, the psychological roots, the systemic issues, the immediate triggers. Right.
The argument basically performs this logical retreat. It's like saying, okay, my anxiety is too complex, too painful to deal with directly. So instead, I'll just decide the source of the anxiety is cosmically irrelevant.
But wait, isn't taking a step back, getting some perspective, sometimes healthy? Don't we sometimes need to see the bigger picture to calm down? Is this just an extreme version of that?
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
Healthy perspective involves looking at a situation's actual importance relative to your life, your values, what you can actually control or influence.
Okay.
Emotional bypassing does the opposite. It encourages you to essentially outsource your entire emotional validation system to the void, to the vast emptiness of space.
Instead of figuring out why you're anxious,
Right?
maybe because your work environment is genuinely harmful.
Exactly. Instead of that investigation, you're kind of coached to just stare at a picture of Jupiter and conclude the anxiety itself must be the problem. A flaw in your thinking because the cosmos is so big. Wow. So you stop being the person with the problem, trying to solve it. And you become your own warden, actively telling yourself your own feelings or needs are invalid because, astrophysics.
Precisely. You become your own jailer. And that's where this connects back to control. Historically, this feeling of liberation, this cosmic calm, it actually functions as a pretty efficient control mechanism because it neutralizes your internal drive to change things, your dissent.
It sounds almost like a secular version of memento mori. The whole medieval remember you must die thing used to keep people in line.
It's an absolutely perfect parallel. Think about it historically. Religious hierarchies, feudal systems, they often used fatalism. Resignation, to maintain the status quo.
How would that work?
If you believe your suffering here on Earth is just temporary, maybe a test, and ultimately insignificant compared to the afterlife.
And why bother challenging the Lord or the king or the church demanding better conditions now?
Exactly. You accept your lot. Resistance seems futile against God's plan or cosmic destiny. This modern cosmic perspective uses the exact same psychological lever.
Okay.
It tells you that the ultimate meaninglessness of everything when viewed from space makes fighting for justice or better pay or personal change right now equally futile.
So the hidden message isn't really live your best life because it's short and small.
No.
It's more like don't rock the boat, don't disrupt the system.
Yeah.
Because none of this really matters in the grand scheme of things anyway.
Yes. The functional result is acceptance, compliance, constraint. It sells itself as this radical, deep introspection, psychological disarmament.
Okay, so we've peeled back the aesthetic layer, exposed the psychological mechanism. Now let's bring out the logical scalpel. Let's get ruthless with the argument itself. Because when you actually break it down, premise, conclusion, the flaw is glaring.
It really is. It's a fundamental logical failure, but it's presented with such, such authority, such cosmic calm, that people rarely stop to check the logic.
It's a classic fallacy, isn't it? The fallacy of irrelevant conclusion. Or, the old Latin non sequitur. It just doesn't follow.
Exactly. The structure is just broken, fatally flawed.
Let's lay it out. Let's even grant the premise, just for argument's sake. Premise A, you are cosmically insignificant.
Okay, physically speaking, compared to galaxies, sure. In terms of size, duration against the age of the universe, yeah, we're tiny, fleeting. Let's accept that premise.
Right, premise A, true. But then they leap to conclusion B.
And conclusion B is, therefore, your immediate anxieties, your worries about your life, your job, your health, your efforts to make things better, all of that is invalid. It should just be dismissed.
And that, therefore, is where it all falls apart.
Completely. There's no logical bridge. Physical insignificance simply does not logically lead to the conclusion that your emotional or psychological experience is invalid. It's a total non sequitur.
Why does the trick work then? Why do people buy the leap?
I think it's because it relies on confusing two totally different ways of measuring things. It's what philosophers call a category error.
A category error. Explain that.
We're mixing apples and oranges. We're applying a physical scale cosmology, light years, mass, to an experiential scale, psychology, emotions, meaning.
Right. Like trying to measure happiness in kilograms.
Exactly. You're equating the scale of the cosmos, how far away Jupiter is, with the significance of your inner life, the intensity of your feelings, your ability to create meaning, the reality of your subjective experience. These are just different categories. They aren't interchangeable.
My physical size, my mass, has absolutely zero bearing on how intensely I feel joy or grief or anxiety.
None whatsoever. I like the analogy you used earlier, like comparing the physical size of a piece of paper to the importance of the treaty written on it.
Yeah. The paper might be tiny, A4 standard, whatever, but the words on it could change the world. Size is irrelevant to the meaning contained within.
That's a great way to put it. Or think back to the analogy from our analysis. It's like telling someone who's literally starving, feeling the intense physical pain of hunger,
that they shouldn't feel that pain because, hey, the universe has lots of empty space in it.
It's absurd when you put it like that, isn't it?
Or the medical one. That one really hits home.
The broken leg one.
Telling someone with a compound fracture, bones sticking out, excruciating pain, hey, don't worry about that pain. Mount Everest exists. Mountains are really big.
No doctor, no sane person would ever say that. Your pain isn't real because geology is vast. It's nonsense.
Yet that is precisely the philosophical move being made by this cosmic perspective trend.
Yes. By constantly hammering on the biggest possible scale galaxies, billions of years, it performs what we call the erasure of scale. It deliberately ignores the relevant scale, the human scale.
And that's a form of reductionism, right? A reductionist fallacy.
It is. And the effect is insidious because it trains you in self-invalidation. It convinces you, the person feeling real stress, real pain, that your experience is trivial just because you are physically small in the cosmos.
So it's not just a logical error in an abstract sense. It's actually harmful. It's basically teaching you to gaslight yourself.
Exactly. You're encouraged to do it to yourself, guided by a soothing voice and those admittedly beautiful CGI nebulae.
And it neatly bypasses all the hard work, doesn't it? The emotional labor, the mental effort needed to actually fix the broken leg, whether that's dealing with debt, leaving a bad relationship, addressing burnout.
Why bother with any of that messy, difficult stuff?
You could just declare the whole concept of brokenness or suffering irrelevant from the viewpoint of Alpha Centauri.
It's efficient in a really perverse way. It offers a shortcut out of dealing with reality.
Okay, psychologically disarming, logically bankrupt. We've established that on the personal level.
Yeah.
But if millions of people are still drawn to this, still consuming it, we have to ask the next critical question. Cui bono? Who benefits?
Right. Who benefits when we adopt an idea that's logically flawed and makes us passive?
Now we shift perspective. From the individual mind to the system. This is the strategic command level of analysis.
And when you look at it that way, the primary beneficiary seems pretty clear. It's the status quo power structure.
Okay, unpack that. How does me feeling cosmically tiny and insignificant help, the existing systems of power, wealth, corporations, governments?
Well, think about the political consequences. What happens when a significant portion of the population starts believing that their struggles, maybe fighting for better wages, protesting pollution in their community, demanding action on climate change, challenging corruption, are ultimately trivial, mindless?
Let's just stop fighting. They stop demanding.
Exactly. This cosmic perspective cultivates an awestruck but passive population. People become fundamentally less likely to challenge injustice, whether it's systemic, organizational, corporate, whatever.
Because if my crippling student debt, or the fact that my company is polluting the local river, or the stress from my gig economy job, if all that is meaningless dust when you zoom out to the Virgo supercluster,
then why would you risk your comfort, your safety, maybe even your livelihood to organize, to protest, to vote for genuinely radical change?
the urgency just evaporates.
The imperative for reform is subtly undermined, replaced by a kind of existential resignation. Any system, especially one with inequalities or flaws, thrives when the people within it are pacified.
Right.
And this philosophical trend, you could argue, is fundamentally counter-revolutionary because it targets the fuel for change. Our sense of passion, our urgency, our belief that things must be different.
And you mentioned a specific economic function, too, aimed at a particular group.
Yes, I think we can identify a very clear economic role here. It functions as the opiate for the professionally anxious class.
The professionally anxious class. Love that term. Who are they?
Think about who this content primarily appeals to. It seems targeted squarely at educated people, often professionals, who are feeling immense stress from the demands of, let's be blunt, late-stage capitalism.
Like what kind of demands?
The constant pressure to perform, the precariousness, the massive financial burdens like housing costs or student loans, the way work bleeds into every corner of life. They're often high-functioning, but existentially exhausted, burned out.
Anxious. And the system isn't really offering structural solutions to that anxiety, is it? Like better worker protections, affordable health care, living wages.
Not usually, no.
Right.
So instead of addressing the source of the anxiety through systemic change, the system, or rather content creators feeding into the system, offers this spiritualized apathy as a coping mechanism.
So it keeps you compliant.
It maintains consumer compliance, absolutely. You keep plugging away at the stressful job, you keep consuming, you keep sacrificing your well-being because this cosmic perspective has conveniently taken the edge off your angst, pacified it.
Without actually fixing anything.
Without fixing the underlying cause. And this leads straight into, frankly, a perverse business model.
How so?
It creates this huge ongoing market for wonder products, more videos, books, expensive find-yourself retreats, branded merchandise.
Right.
It feeds a system where the creators, the platforms, their business model depends on you staying anxious enough to need the next hit of cosmic pacification.
If it actually worked, if one dose of cosmic perspective truly liberated you into proactive joy and effective action, you wouldn't need to keep coming back for more.
Exactly. You wouldn't be a repeat customer. The model requires your continued need for the fix.
So you're sold the supposed cure for the very anxiety the system arguably helps create,
Yeah.
while ensuring you remain a relatively passive participant in that system.
Wow. It's essentially the modern digital equivalent of bread in circuses.
Bread in circuses. Explain that parallel.
Historically, Roman emperors used cheap food and spectacular games to distract the population from, poverty, inequality, political corruption. Keep them happy, or at least distracted.
So today, instead of gladiators,
We get digital awe. Stunning visuals of space, to distract us from professional burnout, systemic injustice, maybe the feeling that our individual lives are increasingly precarious or meaningless within the current structure. It's tailored for an educated audience seeking existential relief, not just cheap grain.
let's talk about this central image they always use, the pale blue dot. Earth from space. It's supposed to make us feel humble, connected.
And it can do that. It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
But the way it's often deployed in this context, it functions as a tool of metaphorical manipulation, or what philosophers sometimes call reification.
Reification.
Treating an abstract idea like humanity or meaning or suffering as if it's a concrete thing that you can dismiss just because the container, the Earth, looks small from far away.
I see. The argument becomes the container is tiny, therefore everything inside the container must also be insignificant.
Precisely. The image of Earth as just a tiny speck, a mote of dust, is used to subtly imply that all the complex, intense, meaningful, and often painful stuff happening on that speck is also insignificant.
It reminds me of that old religious idea, Earth is a veil of tears.
It's a very close secular parallel. The medieval Christian view often portrayed Earth as this temporary, flawed, suffering-filled place you just had to endure passively. True meaning, real value was elsewhere in the afterlife, outside the flawed earthly realm.
And this cosmic perspective does something similar.
It positions the elsewhere, not as heaven, but as the vast, indifferent cosmos. The consequence is the same. It subtly encourages you to disengage from the messy reality here. It reduces your role from an active citizen, a participant, a stakeholder on this planet.
To what?
To a mere tourist, an observer on a cosmic cruise ship just watching the pale blue dot float by, waiting for the ride to inevitably end.
And if you're just a tourist?
Why bother fixing the plumbing? Why get involved in local politics? Why try to reform the system? You're just passing through. It removes the imperative for practical action, for reform, for engagement.
So the goal ultimately isn't really to expand your mind.
It's to shrink your will. #4. Deceptions exposed, and the philosophical contrast. Okay, let's really pin down the specific tricks. The rhetorical sleights of hand being used to sell this apathy as wisdom. We need to catalog the deceptions embedded in this philosophical sales pitch.
Right, let's name them. Deception number 1.
We called it the Nihilistic Bypass. This operates through a false dichotomy. It forces you into a corner. It presents only two options. Either you're completely overwhelmed and paralyzed by your personal anxieties, or you escape by outsourcing your feelings entirely to the vast, uncaring void of space.
No third option, like acknowledging the anxiety and taking constructive action.
That option is conveniently left out of the picture. It's anxiety or the void. Pick one.
And this isn't a new trick, is it?
Oh, not at all. In our analysis, we traced its lineage. It's basically Plato's noble lie.
The noble lie.
Yeah, the idea that the ruling class can tell the masses a useful fiction, a myth, to keep them orderly and compliant. This is just the modern wellness industry's version of that. Repackaged for people having existential crises, they're selling you a spiritualized form of ignorance is bliss.
Okay, deception 2.
This one's more about the presentation, the source, the covert cult of personality.
How does it work? Sounds sinister.
It operates through suppressed evidence. The evidence being suppressed is the commercial interest, the financial incentives, the influence-building goals of the creators making this content.
The fact that they're often selling something.
Yeah.
Books, courses, views, ad revenue.
Exactly. It relies on the classic guru model of dependency creation. They identify a pain point, your existential fear, your anxiety, and then they sell you the cure. Their cosmic perspective, their videos, their brand of pacification.
And they position it as liberation.
While actually fostering dependence, if their content genuinely freed you, made you self-sufficient and fearless, you'd stop consuming it. You wouldn't need the guru anymore.
Right. The business model kind of requires you to stay hooked.
Yeah.
To remain existentially vulnerable, so you need the next dose of cosmic calm.
Precisely. Liberation is bad for repeat business.
Okay, the third deception. You said this one was particularly insidious for practical life.
Yes, this is the worst-case scam. It operates through creating a false equanimity.
False equanimity, what does that mean?
It tells you to cultivate indifference towards all outcomes. Your job success or failure, your relationship thriving or ending, your health improving or declining. Because, hey, from the perspective of a black hole, it's all just temporary flickers anyway, all the same.
Why is that so bad? Isn't detachment sometimes useful?
Detachment from things you can't control, maybe? But this is different. This is devastating because it completely undermines your ability to assess risk, to feel appropriate concern, to have emotional literacy about your own life.
It sounds like they're twisting a real philosophical idea here.
They absolutely are. To really see the deception, you have to compare it to the philosophy they're hijacking and distorting. Stoicism, specifically the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum.
Premeditation of evils, right?
Can you lay out the difference? Because this seems crucial.
Okay. Real Stoicism, practiced properly, asks you to visualize the worst-case scenario, losing your job, getting sick, facing loss.
Yeah.
But why? Not so you can shrug and say, oh, well, cosmic dust.
Right. What's the Stoic purpose?
It's so you can mentally prepare, so you can figure out rationally, okay, if this happens, what's the virtuous way to respond? What practical steps can I take now to mitigate it or then to endure it with integrity? It's about building resilience, preparing for action.
So if I'm worried about losing my job, Stoicism says, acknowledge the possibility, make a contingency plan, update your resume, act virtuously in your current role. It demands preparation and engagement.
Exactly. It demands action within your sphere of control. Now, contrast that with the cosmic scam version.
The cosmic scam says, losing your job, getting sick, don't worry about it. Concepts like jobs and health are meaningless compared to the lifespan of a star.
So it doesn't prepare you.
It just encourages indifference to the potential harm itself. It completely disarms practical preparedness. It equates apathy with wisdom. True Stoicism requires discipline, courage, action. This cosmic perspective bypass demands only resignation.
That distinction clarifies everything. It shows how a potentially useful tool gets twisted into its opposite. Okay, so using this understanding, let's contrast the passive approach of this cosmic perspective content with other philosophical frameworks that actually demand real effort and engagement with suffering.
Great idea. So the cosmic nihilism view we're deconstructing says suffering is basically invalid because of scale. The required response, passive observation, the outcome, maintaining the status quo. Okay, so let's look at 4 alternatives that demand more.
First, Stoicism, as we just discussed. It doesn't invalidate your anxiety. It makes a sharp distinction. Uncontrollable external things, like the size of the universe versus your own internal judgments and responses, how you handle anxiety.
And the prescription.
Virtuous action. Take responsibility within your sphere of control, however small. It empowers your agency. It doesn't dissolve it.
Okay. Second alternative, Buddhism. Buddhism is obviously focused on ending suffering, dukkha, but how? Not by just observing galaxies.
No, it requires active practice, the Noble Eightfold Path. Right mindfulness, right effort, right concentration. It demands rigorous mental discipline, self-awareness, and transformation.
It doesn't say your suffering is insignificant. It says, here is a demanding path to potentially overcome it through your own dedicated effort and insight.
Third, Albert Camus and Absurdism. This is fascinating because Camus starts from the same place. Cosmic indifference. The universe is meaningless, silent.
But his conclusion is the polar opposite of passivity.
Totally. Camus says we must defy the meaninglessness. We must revolt against the absurd silence by creating our own meaning through passion, through rebellion, through human connection. It demands immense existential courage and engagement precisely because the cosmos doesn't care.
You have to embrace the absurd and live passionately anyway, not retreat into apathy.
Exactly. And fourth,
let's bring in a more political lens. Herbert Marcuse and critical theory. From this perspective, much of our anxiety and suffering isn't some timeless existential condition to be soothed by stargazing.
what is it then?
It's systemically produced, generated by social, economic, and political structures designed for profit and control. Unjust systems create suffering.
So the response isn't passive acceptance.
Absolutely not. The required response is critical consciousness. Developing an awareness of how power operates, how systems create inequality and alienation, and then actively challenging those structures. Marcuse would likely see this cosmic perspective stuff as ideology, as a tool of social control diverting energy that could fuel social change into harmless, navel-gazing spirituality.
So the pattern is clear. Stoicism, Buddhism, Absurdism, critical theory, they all in their very different ways, demand effort, action, engagement, transformation, responsibility.
While the cosmic perspective we're examining uniquely prescribes resignation, passivity, spiritualized apathy disguised as depth.
This leads us to what you call the ultimate deception, the core trick behind this whole phenomenon.
Yes, epistemic inversion.
Epistemic inversion, that sounds serious. Explain that.
Yeah.
Why is the clarity we supposedly get from the cosmic view actually an inversion of knowledge, an inversion of how we know things?
Because it's the central maneuver. They position the view from, 10,000 light years away, a perspective maximally detached from your actual concrete lived reality as the ultimate source of truth, of clarity, of wisdom.
Right.
But that extreme detachment, that view from nowhere, is actually an intellectual and emotional abandonment of your real life. It's an abandonment of the only place knowledge and meaning can actually happen for you.
So it's an inversion because it teaches you to value the external, the abstract, the cosmic viewpoint more than your own internal, direct lived experience. We're told to trust the telescope's perspective over the signals from our own bodies, our own minds, our immediate situation.
Precisely. You're encouraged to abandon the only scale that actually constitutes your reality. But here's the countermove, the liberation engine. This is the alternative framing that gives agency back to you by fiercely embracing the human scale.
How does that work?
True liberation, true perspective, comes from recognizing that your tiny, brief experience isn't a flaw to be transcended. It's the only arena where meaning will ever exist for you. Your limited frame isn't a bug, it's the entire movie screen. And that makes it, for you, infinitely significant.
So if the universe doesn't care, that doesn't mean I shouldn't care. It means I must care even more fiercely. Because my caring, my experience, my actions, that's the only source of value in my world.
Yes, that fleeting moment-to-moment experience, the small joys, the sharp pains, the connections, the struggles, that is the totality of reality available to you. To dismiss it in favor of a cold, distant, abstract, cosmic view is, in a very real sense, to abandon yourself.
Absolutely. Stop seeing it as just a nuisance, a pathology, a flaw in your thinking that needs to be squashed or bypassed by looking at stars.
What is it instead?
See it as a meaning signal. Anxiety is often a vital communication from the most complex thing we know, the human brain and nerve system. It's telling you something important.
Like what? It's signaling that something in your environment, your relationships, your work, your life trajectory needs urgent attention. It signals a conflict, a dissonance, a misalignment between where you are and where your deepest needs or values suggest you should be. It's an alarm bell.
And trying to silence that alarm bell by just thinking about how big space is.
It's like cutting the wires to your smoke detector because the noise is annoying. You're ignoring the very signal designed to alert you to what desperately needs addressing right here, right now.
So the goal isn't escape into the cosmos. It's engagement on the ground.
Exactly. The shift we're advocating for is from that spiritualized apathy sold by the cosmic perspective towards a kind of grounded defiance.
Grounded defiant. I like that.
Embrace your tiny frame, your body, your home, your community, your actual relationships, your work. Recognize that this immediate sphere is the only place where meaning can be made real, where virtue can actually be practiced, where systems can genuinely be challenged and changed, where life is actually lived.
So engage. Engage with passion, not passivity. Your smallness in the face of the universe doesn't invalidate the magnitude of your suffering or the importance of your joy or the potential impact of your actions right here on this pale blue dot.
The moment you let the vastness of space convince you to stop caring intensely about your small, immediate life, you've traded the only stage you'll ever have for an illusion, a cheap, engineered, ultimately empty piece.
You've essentially been sold apathy, dressed up as enlightenment. And hopefully now you can see the machinery behind the beautiful cosmic curtain.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where have you recently been told that your problems don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and how will you reclaim the validity of your own experience this week?
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.